Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheimer. Today, I just am so delighted to have three amazing leaders in the disability space. Beth Myers, who is the Executive Director of the Taishoff Center for Inclusive Education and Associate Director of the Center of Disability and Inclusion of Syracuse University. Dr. Hoby Wedler, Ph.D., Chemist, Sensory Explorer, Educator, Storyteller, founder of multiple companies, and Hoby, I'm just so delighted to have you here. And Gianfranco, also delighted to have you, founder and president of Intelligence Plus Plus, Trieste-born designer and founder of an international multidisciplinary innovation by design and development firm, and the Zaccai Foundation sponsors the Intelligence Plus Plus program at Syracuse University. So I'm so happy to have you all here. And we're here to talk about this idea of how inclusion can be leveraged. People's super abilities, super differences can be leveraged in ways that just enrich society, create businesses. And Beth, let's just start with you. I am so fascinated by this program. And I found out about it through my godson, who attended Syracuse University and has developed a business with some friends. Talk a little bit about the Taishoff Center and the work that you're doing at this amazing Center on Disability and Inclusion.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here today. So the work we do is actually part of a larger field called inclusive post-secondary education, where we're really focused on supporting students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in college and university spaces. This is largely a group who's been excluded from transition opportunities like college for a very long time. And so we're really looking at how we can support students to have that opportunity in college. So we're supporting students with Down syndrome, students with Williams syndrome, students who are non-readers, students who type to communicate. So students with some really complex support needs in college and university spaces. And this has really become a national and international movement. Looking at this first generation of college students with intellectual and developmental disabilities has been world-changing. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it. At the Taishoff Center here at Syracuse University, we do program development. So we have a model program for students here at Syracuse. It's one of the largest and most inclusive programs in the United States. And students are fully included for coursework in the residence halls, so they live in the dorms with everybody else. They're part of the full college experience. They're in clubs and organizations and fraternities and sororities and, just living their full college lives, doing internships and really just being full college students. But we also do lots of other things like research in this field. We run a national conference. We run a research journal to really help support the field. And we do technical assistance. So we support other colleges and universities to really grow these opportunities across the United States and across the world so that we're not the only place that does this kind of work.
And the thing that I think is so interesting is that the approach that you're taking seems to be one where you're looking at the university's responsibility for all of society, right? University experiences are so often defined by factors like wealth, or whether one can see, or whether one can hear, or whether one has a particular profile or upbringing or background. Hoby, when you look at these kinds of programs, how do you view the whole idea of holistic experience in terms of having people come together who are different and who are exchanging and who are educating each other? Because that's what a university is about. It's not top-down education.
Right.
It's interactive education, isn't it?
It's absolutely right. So first of all, Mark, thank you for bringing us all together. And thank you to all my co-panelists for being here. This is really exciting. And look, I believe in diversity for a very simple reason, not because it's something we should do to check a box. I think that diversity allows us to solve problems in a more efficient, more dynamic, and more appropriate way. And if we have a bunch of people who all look the same, who all have the same abilities, who all do things the same way, sitting around a table, thinking something through and solving a problem, whether it be a business problem, a social impact problem, whatever the case may be, we're going to arrive at a bunch of stale, similar decisions, each group at one after another. But if we bring people in from different backgrounds to think through this stuff and solve problems together, we're really creating a dynamic and multi-experiential and rather eclectic way of solving a problem. And I think that the program that Beth is running in Syracuse is just absolutely incredible and something that I admire so much, because it's taking people who might have different ways of approaching the world, different ways of learning, different ways of thinking, otherwise known as folks with disabilities, and allowing them to play on an equal playing field. I've been totally blind since birth, had amazing parents with super high expectations, and I thank them to this day for that. And being blind in a sighted world can feel inefficient. Blindness is a little bit of a nuisance sometimes. But what I will say and what I will stand by every step of the way is the idea that when we get out there and we think about something and we have the tools to succeed, we can turn our disadvantages into game-changing advantages. And we might realize that the things that we don't have are actually our superpowers. And that's why, Mark and everybody, everything that I do in my work for day in, day out is to just create opportunities for people to be able to be their best selves, be healthy, be happy, and do what they love to do in the world. Not necessarily with ease, but with confidence. Sure, we're all going to have challenges, but the more that we get people excited about what they can do and give them the opportunities to succeed, the more that those who are driven will just jump at the chance. I don't care if you're disabled, non-disabled, what your sexual preference is, what color you are, it doesn't matter. If people are given opportunities, they will reach for the stars and see where they end up. And that's what this is all about.
And the opportunities infect us. Gianfranco, one of the things that I find so fascinating about your career and your designs is that it looks to me as an outsider, sort of studying up on your work, that you've really leveraged different perspectives in your users, in your customers, in society. You've made a whole life out of this.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. No, thank you. First of all, thank you for including me in this panel. Very exciting. Of course, I know Beth from a long time because of the Intelligence Plus Plus project at Syracuse, and I'm really honored to meet Dr. Wedler and you, Mark, as well. So actually, I need to go back and say, yeah. So I actually. So my background is not in education or in psychology or medicine or science in any way. I'm an industrial designer. I'm a trained architect. But when I finished my first degree at Syracuse, I decided I needed to work for a corporation to understand how corporations work before I started my consultancy. And so I spent 12 years working for a biomedical company, where I learned a lot, including why it's so difficult to innovate in organizations, because they're often siloed. And when you have silos, every silo looks at the world, the same way that a hammer looks at the world as being full of nails. Along the way, I adopted 2 children, best thing I ever did in my life. But I discovered that they all had some difficulties, and now they're in late 20s, early 30s. So many years have passed, and along the way, they were involved in full inclusion in schools, which I thought was great. But in reality, I learned too late that they were being bullied in school, because children often are not very nice to each other. And then through them, I also met some of their friends and their friends' families. And what I came to realize is that I had believed that all of the experts that were working with my children were going to be the people who could help them the best, whether they were educators, psychologists, you name it. But I actually came to realize that they had very limited tools to do so. Wonderfully emotionally involved people that wanted to do a great job. But what I often say, sometimes I do some public speaking, and what I often say is I start with a slide of Stephen Hawking. And I say, here's Stephen without the innovations that helped him to overcome his physiological limitations. He would not have done anything in life.
Right.
So why don't we have the same amount of innovations to help people that are neurodiverse?
Well, we're leaving things on the table, right? I mean, we're basically leaving value on the table because we just are so intent on being part of the mean, on the average, right? So that as soon as we detect difference, we look away, we ignore.
Yeah.
And what do? We leave value on the table. We leave their capabilities on the table. We leave how they can instruct us on the table. Your designs, and some of them are just fascinating. Your designs seem to emerge very often from listening to the unheard words and unexpressed words of people who have a different need or view.
Well, when you talk about my designs, it's actually the word I use is the innovations, because too often people think that when you talk about design, it's about decoration, right? And so, the way we developed these innovative products and services was really by looking at what people really did, not what they said that they did in their context of their lives. And by looking at it from different perspectives, right? So we would have an interdisciplinary team going to people's homes and hospitals and so forth. Anyway, that's the same process that we're trying to foster at Syracuse University in the Intelligence Plus Plus project, which is now entering its 7th year. Because what I've come to realize that inclusion is really important and essential. But to facilitate inclusion, you also need to buffer people's areas of limitations and celebrate people's areas of strength.
So I was watching Hoby's videos, fabulous videos, and I am going to eat a jalapeno pepper like you did just to taste it. Now, I've never thought about doing that. I really have never thought about it. But when you described some of those flavors, I'm like, it was inspiring to me.
Thank you for that. I just want to circle back to something Gianfranco just said that I think is so valuable, is that if we play to people's strengths, we pull all that value off the table and we're able to use it. If we don't think about people's strengths when we not only design but innovate, we leave that value, and Mark, you alluded to this too, we leave that value on the table that otherwise could be harnessed. And I have found that what I was told as a young boy was my disability, my blindness, is actually my superpower. And it's not that I am blind, so I have better or heightened sense of smell or taste or hearing than anyone else. It's just that I've learned to use those skills differently. And what Mark's getting at here is that I graduated with my Ph.D. in organic chemistry, decided that I liked people and the food and beverage world a lot more than finicky molecules in the laboratory, but really thought about how can I apply my chemistry across many industries. So about 15 years ago, I was lucky enough to partner with the film director, Francis Ford Coppola, to design a program for his wineries that was meant as just a hospitality experience for consumers called Tasting in the Dark, where we use the blindfold merely as a lens to shut off a sense that most folks use, the sense of eyesight, to take in 85 to 90% of the information from their surroundings. And what people realize when we temporarily remove this sense is they can not only taste and smell better, but they can focus on flavor and aroma and texture, and even on the conversations that we engage in around the table. So that's been really powerful, and it inspired me. Actually, my partner told me, you should really get on social media and start doing some fun videos where you talk about food and drink and just the way you experience the world around you. And Mark is referring to a video that I did last year about habanero peppers, which are incredibly spicy. But when we describe the flavors and how the chemistry interacts with your palate, people have seemed to really enjoy it. I was kind of against social media, but I took a chance and went along with what my partner said. And we've gone from 3,000 followers on Instagram to about 500,000 followers in about a year. And that inspired us to put together a whole show about sensory storytelling, where we tell a story of a place the way that I might experience it. And we've got a producer signed now. We're shopping the show. And it's just really exciting when we realize, and it's taken me a long time to realize, that my lack of eyesight is what gives me the power and the opportunity to do what I do, both as a sensory storyteller and as a business owner. And I want to get this out here right now, that to me, business and entrepreneurship, both things I consider myself as an entrepreneur and a businessman, are not meant to go out there and make money. A business is only successful if it solves a real problem. And that's why I was so excited to find actually Aidan Turner, the co-founder and CEO of Solace Collective, which it's a new startup that makes garments, clothing for folks who are neurodivergent and folks who want a little bit of extra either feeling of calm or something to fiddle with in the pocket. You're going to hear from the Solace founders on a future episode, so I won't steal their thunder at all. But just seeing a group that was out there problem solving and making life easier for folks who are neurodivergent was just incredibly inspiring. And when clothing is designed with, or when anything is designed with intention to help a specific group, what I've found is it's absolutely incredible how those innovations help everybody when we're not expecting them to. So to investigate computational organic chemistry as a blind student, I relied on 3D printing. But what was funny is when I would 3D print the structures that I was examining in a ABS plastic form, all my colleagues started 3D printing their structures. Why? Because their graphical user interface, which they use all the time, wasn't powerful enough. They could see and feel and understand so much more about the molecules that they were studying if they printed them out in 3D and could actually hold them. And that brings me to another point here, Mark, which is, I'm not sure if you guys know this fun fact, but the typewriter in the mid-1800s was invented in the United States for one sole purpose. And that purpose is so that blind people or people who are print disabled could write notes and manuscripts and whatever they needed in print. And look at where the typewriter has taken us. When it was designed for one tiny niche of people, it became the standard from the 1860s through the 1990s, really, until electronic word processors came around and eventually computers. But it's just, to me, the innovations that we come out with, thinking of one group, can help everybody in so many ways. So not limiting ourselves to one group or one design concept, and really thinking outside the box is what it's all about, and what can turn seeming disadvantages into superpowers.
And I'm interested in Beth, I want to say something bad about universities. So
okay, I'm ready for it.
Universities so often are built on a foundation of conventional wisdom, of repeating what has been learned in the past, purportedly to drive future innovations, but too often that conventional wisdom just becomes so embedded and so repeated and so, and it seems to be so often moving toward a dead end. But you have a program that starts off with the idea of serving difference. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about the culture of Syracuse University that allows this program to be seeded, to thrive, to find support, to find students. because that is such a great thought that maybe, as Hoby said, as Gianfranco suggests, this idea of difference becomes the superpowers of the university system, serving difference, serving beyond the conventional, beyond the past.
Okay, and I'll start off by just pushing back on that a little bit, because I do think that our university spaces are really these fantastic spaces for innovation, right? When we support the research that happens in our university spaces, incredible things happen here, right? At all of these university spaces, they're wonderful petri dishes for research and innovation. And there is I love being in a university space because the conversations and the pushing that happens here, the cross collaboration that can happen in a university space is just really incredible. But and this, the Intelligence Plus Plus project is a fantastic example of that, because of what Gianfranco has supported here. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But one of the things that has happened is that we have this incredibly collaborative project. And there's a co-taught space and a co-taught project where we're focused on disability, design, and entrepreneurship. And I have the pleasure of being able to teach the disability content of the course. But I actually didn't know a lot about design or entrepreneurship. And I get to teach students from across the campus, which is also a really fantastic piece of that. Because before, I really taught primarily within the School of Education, and I taught students who were studying inclusive education, special education, or disability studies. Now I get to teach engineering students, design students.
You're basically exploding the silos that Gianfranco was talking about when he was referring to corporate America and failure to integrate. Basically, what you're doing is you're addressing my critique, which is, universities are siloed and they repeat too often lessons of the past. What you're saying is you actually were empowered to explode categories, right?
This project is a great example of that, where we get to really cross-collaborate, we get to work with lots of other folks. And now that this project has been running for a while, this semester we have somebody who's a professor who's a specialist in assistive technology. We have an engineering professor who's working with the project, right? We have all of these additional experts who are working with students and students who are really interested in adding additional pieces to it. And then not only that, but the students in my program, in our Inclusive U program, students with intellectual disability are taking the class as well. So students from across the campus are taking this course. And students are embedded on all of the teams. So it's really about not designing for disabled people, but designing with disabled people. And that's one of the most important pieces.
You're creating consumer consultants, aren't you, right? Design consultants?
Yes. As part of the class. And then not only that, but we've also hired some students who are either currently in the course or who have graduated from the Inclusive U program. So we have currently 3 non-speaking individuals who are consultants on a project about assistive technology. So we have like a really great cross collaboration in lots of ways where people are really informing the projects to make all of the projects better, stronger.
I see an innovation opportunity, Gianfranco, with elder care, where people might have lost the ability to speak. I see all these different opportunities. Do you see them?
Well, first of all, can I just step back for a moment about your comment about the silos? I actually think that universities are very siloed, and we're very siloed. So that, when I started the Intelligence Plus Plus project at Syracuse, it was by definition, it needed to be multidisciplinary. So it was open to and that was difficult to achieve. And the reason for that is that different schools within a university are also financially motivated to keep their tuitions within their departments. I mean, there's all kinds of things behind the background, so what happens is that research happens in universities, which is great, but sometimes research happens within one department or one point of view, right? So, for example, when we developed the Swiffer for Procter & Gamble, when we invented it, basically, they were Ph.D. chemists, no offense meant, who looked at the same reality about people cleaning their floors. And they saw the solution being a detergent that wouldn't leave a sheen or wouldn't leave a film after it dried out. And we looked at it as being an opportunity to get rid of the water and the detergent, because mostly what's on the floor is dust, right? So, very smart people looking at the same phenomena, seeing different things.
And that multidisciplinary piece is the key, right? Because then you have conventional ideas challenged by somebody else with different ideas, right?
Well, right. But what that means is that each multidisciplinary participants in the project bring a different level of sensitivity and they achieve empathy at some point, a shared empathy. So, for example, the Solace Collective came out of the Intelligence Plus Plus project, and it was formed by a group of people, multidisciplinary, right? They're business folks, a designer, an architect, all part of this project. And one of the members was confided to the others that they were very anxious. And the things that exacerbated their anxiety were the seams in the clothing. They were highly sensitive to that. So that's what actually stimulated the whole group to develop the Solace Collective. So one of the great virtues of the Intelligence Plus Plus project is having the inclusive youth students be part of the project. As Beth was saying, we're not designing at them, we're designing with them. And they're bringing both an insight into issues that they struggle with, but they're also bringing things that they are really good at, or that even if they're not great at it from the standpoint of the standard of the world, they derive a great deal of pleasure from, and self-actualization.
Isn't that the point of business, right, Hoby? It's basically taking people with different capabilities, bringing them together, and achieving a common objective.
It is, and what I was going to say. Sorry, I was just jumping in there, Mark. What I was going to say, just in response to what Gianfranco said, I think a great example of this is the invention of the Swiffer, where you have a group of people who are chemists and not thinking about other, positivities of ways of cleaning or this sort of thing. They notice an interesting phenomenon. They go to a really skilled design team, and that project or that whatever it is innovated.
We went into people's homes together with the PhD chemists. Yeah, and we observed what people did as opposed to what they said they did. And we did, analysis of what was on the floor. And at the end, we came back with different results. Basically, the chemists came back because they came from the world of developing chemistry for detergents. They came back with the idea of developing a detergent that wouldn't leave a film. We came back with the idea of getting rid of the detergent, which is kind of anathema if you have a company that makes detergents, right?
But if you can build it all into one, that's even more special. And what I love about that, Gianfranco, is it really pulls in the elements of going in and figuring out what works in people's homes, in people who have lived experience of needing to clean. And I think innovation is all about asking a lot of questions. What is the status quo, and what works about it? What doesn't work about it? And if you're designing a product for people with disabilities, or for any group of people, you need to be asking those questions of how do people access this product. I'll give you a good example of a robotic pizza delivery company whose name shall be not mentioned here, who delivered a whole system of robotic pizza delivery to tables. And what was happening is that, first of all, the ordering system is completely inaccessible to people with mobility impairments because it's all on a really small touchscreen, and completely inaccessible to people with blindness or low vision. And then when the pizza shows up, it sits there and it expects you to pay the thing before you take your pizza, or before it drops the pizza off. Anyway, I won't go into detail, but it had a lot of inaccessibilities built into it, which was a direct result of not going out and looking at the people who you're innovating for or innovating with, to use that word, Beth, which I really, really appreciate. It's about figuring out what is current and what needs to be done, and building something that makes sense based on all that. And I really think all four of us are saying the same thing here, that it's all about thinking through what's needed, putting the pieces together, and not only the pieces, but equally important, the team with a diverse set of skills, diverse sets of abilities, and diverse sets of lived experience to create great innovations and great opportunities. And this is true in the business sector. It's true in the social sector. It's true anywhere you look. It's in the culinary world. I can think of countless examples where the framework that we're discussing here just comes together and works.
Well, I just wanted to jump in and say that what I've learned, and this is the great advantage of having inclusive youth students in the project, but also as a parent of neurodiverse children, now adults, is that the world of neurodiversity is so broad, and people are so diverse within it, that the first thing we need to do is to uncover unmet needs and aspirations. And you don't just do that by talking to people. That includes it. It's also observing what their life is really like and developing deep empathy, right? And then there's two parts of the process. One is inclusion is really important, but you also need to develop innovations that can help people to become more included naturally, right? So, for example, one of the projects that now is in the engineering program and the computer science program is to help people who are nonverbal to communicate in a more natural way than what they're currently doing, right? So I've come to believe that neurodiversity is like a mountain of needs. And they're all different. Some of them are related to, interrelated, and some are unique.
The thing that you said is important. I just want to highlight that. It's a mountain of needs, but it's a mountain of needs. And this is the unfinished piece of what you just said. It's a mountain of needs that we all have.
Correct.
We all have these needs.
That's right. And by the way, the needs are not just people who are neurodiverse, but their families, their educators, their therapists, so it's all of society.
Me.
You, exactly.
Me too. We all need things to fidget with, and these clothes are for everybody.
Well, so what I'm trying to do at Syracuse and now in Italy with this Neurodiversity Innovation Prize is to rally a number of people that are, massive numbers of people that are smarter than I am, to delve into this area as an opportunity to do well by doing good, right? To chip away at this mountain from their own different perspectives and come up with solutions that help people to integrate into society in a better way than they have been in the past. So, for example, nonverbal people to communicate in something that approaches actual language, right? And on the other hand, to have people develop what in Maslow's hierarchy is self-actualization, like what provides joy in their life, what provides a sense of accomplishment. Before
we close off, and we're coming to the end of our time, I'd like to do a rundown of the program that you have, how extensive it is, what departments are involved at Syracuse University, the students that are involved, and the outcomes. And then we're going to set up the Solace Collective is a organization that designs clothes and markets and sells clothes for people who are neurally divergent, but it also solves some problems like annoying seams that fall in the wrong place for people with skin sensitivities and other issues. So Beth, could you give us a rundown of the program and how we've taken the ideas that have been expressed by Gianfranco and Hoby and basically created a program that transforms thinking, society, businesses, creates opportunities?
I really love this question because, I could really talk about outcomes all day, and I'll just give a couple of quick things. But one of it is that we've seen this field grow tremendously over the last 15 years. Our program itself has grown from just 14 students with intellectual disability here at Syracuse University to 105 this year. And so that's a tremendous amount of growth. But we've also seen sort of the field grow from only a handful of colleges who offered a program like this to now about 300 in the United States, and still only a few internationally that really offer this. But we're seeing some growth. We're seeing lots of interest. But remember, that's still only less than 6% of colleges in the United States that allow students with intellectual disability to be able to attend a college program. So there's very few supports, and we really need to see an increase here. We had 110 applicants for our program last year for only 30 spots. So there's a huge gap. We have a really big need here. We need to see more programs like this. And we're also seeing some really fantastic outcomes nationally of where students go and what they're able to access after they leave programs like this. The employment rate for people with developmental disabilities and intellectual and developmental disabilities nationally is pretty abysmal. It's only about 17%, which is really terrible. For students coming out of programs, inclusive post-secondary ed programs, it's about 75%. So that's
15% versus 75%. That's a return on investment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge, right? But not only that, but think about what that means for all of these students who are graduating from these programs, right?
Well, also all of us, right? We get to take the advantage of those those talents that are there.
Right. It's talent, and it's meaningful living for people.
It's
right?
Economic development. It's community.
Absolutely.
It's city.
And it means like living in your community. It means people being more involved. And one of the things that I say to the Intelligence Plus class every year is so many of them will go on to maybe launch their project or their idea into a business, just like Solace, right? They have launched this into a fantastic business that I think is going to be very successful. And so many of these projects will. But it really is so much more than that, because every one of these students who has had this experience in this program is going to go on and out into the world, and they're going to have a different experience because of this. They are going to be better employers. They're going to be better colleagues. They're going to be better family members. They're going to be better business associates. They're going to be better neighbors. They're going to be better voters. And every single bit of that is a ripple effect. Everything about that means something in the world. And all of them are going to be better designers, better innovators, and everything about this is life-changing for all of them. And that is really important. It's better for all of us. Every one of our students is going to be a better person because of it.
From the Intelligence Plus project, not only does it bring people together from different disciplines, to collaborate, including students from the Inclusive U program who bring their own sensibilities and insights and aspirations, right? And at the end, it's a 1-year long project, 2 semesters. The first semester is about discovering unmet needs. The second semester is about developing enabling innovations to address those needs. And those needs are, in some cases, to, for example, nonverbal people. How can they become more able to communicate in a more natural way? Others are what are the areas of strength that people have, and how can you celebrate those areas of strength? Now, in some cases, the areas of strength are really, hyper-natural powers, right? So there's a woman who's autistic who's like the world's expert on what cows eat when they graze, because, she had the ability to focus on that. But there are many other people that don't have that kind of strength of ability, but they do have aspirations. They like to play basketball. They like to sing. They like to participate in Special Olympics. So we also want to celebrate and accentuate the areas that provide pleasure and self-actualization. And I think that when people leave this program, in some ways, they're infected by this. So whatever they do in their lives, in their careers, they bring some of this sensibility into, whether it's, investment banking or political science or medicine. That's what I'm striving for, is to infect as many people as possible with this mission to do well by doing good in this new interdisciplinary way.
Gianfranco, thank you for those wonderful remarks. And I think it's so important. What I always end every keynote that I give, whether it's a small group of students or a large corporate engagement, I end with these 3 thoughts, because I think they're important for everyone and important to this and relevant to this conversation. Number 1, we are not alone. None of us are alone in this world. We can't be afraid to ask for help. We can't be afraid to surround ourselves with other people, no matter what their skill sets are, because you never know what you're going to learn. So remember that we're not alone. Number 2, we're all enough. As long as we're delivering our personal best, there's no need to compare ourselves to others. We are enough in and of who we are. And number 3, we, every single one of us and every single listener, we are all amazing. And really what that comes down to is figuring out what your superpowers are and really diving deep into them. Just those 3 things I think are so important.
I'd like to thank you all and kudos to Syracuse University and the community for embracing this program. Beth Myers, the Executive Director of the Taishoff Center for Inclusive Education and Associate Director of the Center of Disability and Inclusion of Syracuse University. Dr. Hoby Wedler, Ph.D., Chemist, Sensory Explorer, Educator, Storyteller, founder of multiple companies, and Gianfranco, founder and president of Intelligence++, Trieste-born designer and founder of an international multidisciplinary innovation by design and development firm, and the Zaccai Foundation sponsors the Intelligence++ program at Syracuse University. Thank you all for sharing this magnificent program, and we're going to set up a meeting, an interview with the Solace Collective, Syracuse University students coming out of Beth's program, with Gianfranco's support, with Hoby's support, who have created this wonderful product line, this wonderful company, and we really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
very much, Mark, and thank you to everybody for sharing these insights and really changing the world one innovation and one person at a time.